So the big caveat to all web-based technology is you better learn to laugh, because you just don't know when things are going to go wrong. And I, I'm telling you, just expect it, and it will happen. And you're just going to have to learn to laugh, and everybody will laugh with you. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see some controls. One of them is raise your hand. And what I would like for you to do is, if this is your first Zoom webinar, would you click and raise your hand for me? 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's going right up. All right, so consider this your first Zoom training. You now know how to raise your hand. Zoom, I also want to say, in the chat window that's down there, the little chat bubble, you can click that if you haven't already opened it, and you can send messages to everyone. So if you'll click and open your chat panel, and make sure in the bottom there that it says to all participants and panelists, or all panelists and participants. Here we go. All panelists and attendees, and type in your name and your organization. Reed Park Zoo, Literacy Connects, United Way Diaper Bank, Literacy Connects, Girl Scouts. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So moving on. A little bit about me real quickly. I do write training and create videos and animations, all kinds of learner type presentations. And I've been working remotely for the past 11 years. And before that, I put literally everything that there was to put in a volunteer program online. So you might expect that right now I'm extremely busy, because everybody is trying to very quickly get online with all of their information, their training. And these are some of the things that you can do. These are what I do online. I recruit, I hire, I have people, I've worked with people all around the world. I have translators in different countries. I do all of my documentation, signing paperwork. There's literally nothing that I don't do right from this room. And unfortunately, given our situation now and what we can expect in the near future, that's pretty much what you as a volunteer manager are going to have to do. So today's meeting is not a deep dive into any of this stuff, more of an introduction to some of the apps and some of the platforms that you might want to explore. Doing a deep dive into any of these requires quite a bit more, and we at SAVMA are happy to work with you and to create more learning opportunities. But today is going to be an overview of many of these things, and you can try to adapt, see which of them is of use to you. So a lot of you have taken a big sucker punch from this pandemic. And well, before I go there, I want to go back to what I said just a little bit ago. As you're moving into this online phase, something new, the most important thing is that you don't let perfection be the enemy. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I see people with tens of thousands of followers, and their dirty laundry is in the background. They're in the basement of a fraternity. There's washing machines. You wouldn't believe what's out there, and they have tens of thousands of followers. And the point being that what they're delivering is of value. And even if you make some mistakes and trip up a few times, it's not really going to matter. What your volunteers want to see from you is the connection. So give it a shot, keep trying. And well, that just jumped all over the place. So right now, I would think that, and I'm not managing a volunteer program right now, but I would guess that maintaining relationships with your volunteers so that they remain engaged and remain ready to come back and become involved again would be the most important thing. But you can also use online tools to put those volunteers to work in planning and in an ongoing conversation with you and your organization for when you can come back to work. For those of you who are just basically your doors are shut for right now. So happy hour is always a good thing to have that kind of relationship where you continue to have an ongoing weekly conversation with your volunteers. So some of the platforms and the apps that I use are Zoom, of course, and I'll talk more about Zoom and the tools that you'll need to use Zoom. Google Docs, Dropbox, Airtable is a great online database. Slack, Asana for program or project management, and then in more advanced cases, programs like Flare or WordPress. Now, I did forget to tell you that if you have particular questions for me or for any of the panelists, use the Q&A button down there. I'm giving an overview, but when you have specific questions about a particular topic or platform, don't hesitate to put that out there. We won't be able to get into lots of depth, but we do want to talk about things that are of importance to you. So there are a lot of hurdles that you're going to face, including all of the technology, the network, Wi-Fi, laptops that freeze up. My laptop froze up about 20 times last week, and I was beginning to become kind of concerned about it. Hopefully it won't happen today. So let's start with the basic. For broadband, what is the minimum that you need in order to reach out to folks to have to be able to use platforms like Zoom or Skype or any of the online chat video systems? The published stats for HD, both to stream out and in, is about 3 megabits per second, but I'm going to tell you that 5 is much better. So you may want to go to something like speedtest.net and get an idea of what your actual internet speeds are. If at all possible, do not use wired or do not use Wi-Fi. If you have the ability to plug in an Ethernet connection, it is far more stable and tends to be far more reliable. And your 5 megabits will tend to be much more like 5 megabits. Wi-Fi systems at the home consumer level don't manage network traffic very well. So you'll need to be either at a very high-priced Wi-Fi network that is managed, and you'll have to have someone to manage that, or use wired connections. When you are actually broadcasting, when you're doing a Zoom or a Skype or any kind of a video chat, disconnect other devices that might be taking up some of your bandwidth. And I see some hands are being raised. If I don't see any Q&A though. So if you have a question, please click the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on a tablet, you have to maybe tap it to bring it up. Tap the screen and bring it up, and send me the question in the Q&A down there. And hopefully I can get to everybody's. Okay, the question that I'm actually being asked the most, and I'm currently making videos and writing instructions on how to use Zoom, is what's the best platform out there? And about 5 years ago, when I was moving a national program into a online educational platform, I looked at a lot of different platforms, and there are some really powerful, wonderful platforms out there for education and for keeping track. And most of them, the commercial ones, used a ton of bandwidth. So we, as a national organization, the one that I work with the most, we use Zoom. And the reason that we use Zoom is because it's very, very stable, and it works even when the Wi-Fi or the broadband is minimal. So what you need to understand is that a lot of the people that you're reaching out to are going to be on a phone or a tablet. They may be on their data plan. They may be on a very minimal. Hopefully they won't be on a dial-up. Remember the old AOL sound, the modem dialing up? Hopefully they won't be on that. But it's not just your broadband, it's the people that you're connecting to. And Zoom really eliminated almost all of the problems that we had with lag and skip. And for those who had just really minimal, you can actually get by with just kind of a lower quality video chat with about half of what I recommend. So that's one of the reasons that we like Zoom. The other reasons are it's feature rich. You can do whiteboarding, you can connect an iPad to it, you can of course share screens like we are right now. I'm sharing a PowerPoint. People can annotate it. We can make circles on it and arrows and all of that kind of stuff. So Zoom is a powerful platform. It's different than Skype and some of those others that you might dial somebody up. It's more like almost more like a telephone call. But with Zoom, you can schedule meetings and you can set things up to be the way that you want them ahead of time. And there are multiple platforms within Zoom. So a meeting and you can have a free meeting account, and you can have up to a 40-minute meeting, and it won't cost a thing. It has a meeting is built for everybody to participate with a camera and a microphone, and perhaps share their screen and collaborate on documents and on the workflow. Oh, good question. Good question. I just got a question about the security concerns with Zoom, and I'll get right into that. So that's Zoom meetings. We are in Zoom webinars at this moment. So the difference being that with Zoom webinars, it's built as a platform for a presenter or a panel of presenters to present to a group of people who don't have the ability to get to participate with a camera and a microphone, or with the annotation tools or any of those tools. So it's kind of a presenter versus audience for webinar. And then the meeting structure is everybody comes into the room, and that creates some problems. I wish I had the you'll see I have a picture in here. We find that people jump into Zoom meetings and they really don't realize that they're on camera, and they really don't realize that their microphone might be turned on. So that's part of the educational thing that you'll have to go through, and part of the reason that this whole journey can be so much fun. So I have a question here about the security concerns of Zoom. And Zoom has made a lot of changes. In fact, most of what I wrote 2 weeks ago has been changed since as of today, because they've made a lot of changes to make better security process, and they've moved a lot of the security settings to basically to the web page, to the presenter's page, so that you can, me as a presenter, I can easily click one button and have more of the security options right there. So what I would say is that one of the big concerns is the Zoom bombers. So Zoom bombers is a new thing where people jump into, it's like photo bombing, where you jump into somebody else's photo, but this is jumping into somebody else's meeting and then causing disruption by turning on a camera, sharing pictures that they shouldn't share, or just causing any kind of problems that they can. So the first step to Zoom security from a presenter's point of view is, we all have a personal Zoom number, room number, and my team knows my number. So if I send them a text or something, I say, meet me in Zoom, they know I don't have to give them a room number. They know exactly where to go. But any meeting, you should use a generated number. So when you're setting up the meeting, there's in settings, when you go to the web, you can say use a generated number. And that number is random. It's only going to be used for that particular meeting. And that will keep people, you never want to take your private number and put it on Facebook and say, meet me here. There's a national organization, the Librarians Association, who decided that they would do this great thing and create a room that is 24/7 for librarians to jump in and talk about whatever issues that they want to. And that's both a good and a bad idea, because you know that there's going to be all kinds of people. They advertise this widely, and there's going to be people who jump into that room. So you never want to put your private room number out in social media, or use that as a typical meeting type of place, or a meeting place that, say, is scheduled every week. Use the generated number. Now, if you use a generated number, there's very little chance that you're going to get a bomber who just jumps in there. But you can find, I mean, it's rare, it's a 9-digit number, but there are people who just sit in and put numbers in and try to get into a meeting. So if you're really concerned about that, then you can also use a password. So the password is only going to be available to those who you send an email to that confirms their registration. And you can embed that password in the registration link so that it's still easy for legitimate users to get into the meeting. But anyone who doesn't receive that confirmation confirmation email still cannot get into the meeting without that password. So that would be the very first thing. When it comes to how Zoom protects your personal information, I write a lot of information about cybercrime, and the base fact is that you just flat can't trust any company at all. The biggest company to have breaches was Yahoo, and they lost billions of user some private information from users, and never told anybody about it until they got caught. So that's just a thing. Zoom does not have two-factor authentication available yet, but I expect to see that very soon, because of the big concerns with Zoom, and they're responding to that. So hopefully, I hope that answers that question. And you are able to get a full transcript at the end, but it's not, I actually don't know about the private chats. I think that only the host can get that, but I would have to check that out, Jennifer. I'm not sure about that. So those are a couple of questions. I think that we're good. If that did it, let's dismiss those and move on. Ideally, when you're setting up your Zoom meetings and your Zoom webinars, the best thing to do, like I'm handling everything right now, but a really great idea is to have a facilitator and a producer and share the burden of watching the chat. Like I don't really have time to watch the chat, but watch the different interfaces and be able to answer questions for people who can't get into the room. Watch and have a backup plan so that, for instance, if people aren't, if your email registration email says, you know, it's if you have a question, give some kind of a contact, or even make it a Facebook thing that they can go to Facebook and they can get in touch with somebody there. So here's TechSoup happens to be a partner, or Zoom is a partner at TechSoup, so nonprofits can get a really nice price on Zoom. So I said that the basic plan for meetings is free, and that limits supposedly 40 minutes for any free meeting that's got, I think, 3 or more people in it. A basic, or the pro plan, which gets rid of that, is about $10 a month. The webinar feature is an additional $40 a month. So that Zoom is a very cost-effective platform. And I've looked at House Party. I used to use Skype. I used Hangouts for years. I just, as an overall platform, I can't find anything that's better than Zoom. So let's talk about some of the tools you might need. And hopefully I'm not talking too fast, but I know we've got a lot of material to cover. Your built-in webcam and your built-in mic on your laptop is generally fine. Unfortunately, Dell and some others put the webcam down at the bottom of the screen, which kind of gives you the upward look, which is not all that flattering. And some cameras are terrible, and some of the mics are really terrible. So if you want to put if you are doing Zoom presentations often enough, if you're holding Zoom conferences or meetings often enough, it'd be a great idea to invest in a USB. That's this connector that's down here, the USB connector, webcam and microphone. Now I'm going to say that, and I'm going to tell you that right now, the Logitech Brio that I have on here, I have a couple of those. Those are excellent webcams. You just can't get them. A lot of this equipment right now is just out of stock. I did order another one. It's like 6 weeks out. So any of the Logitech 1080p HD, the high definition webcams, are good. I've had great luck with those. And the microphone, make sure that both of those, the best idea is to get even the microphone with the USB plug. That means that everything will match, and it should just plug right in and work. You can get a microphone that has the little 3.5 millimeter jack if your laptop has that input. And lights, Gina's out in the sun because she had a bright light behind her earlier today. So she's not silhouetted, but it's obviously important to have a light source in front of you. That means sit in front of a window, face a window, so that the sun is in front of you and you don't have an overpowering backlight. But if you get into more professional, I have a massive light that's up here. It should be up above your eyes, especially if you're wearing glasses. If you have a light source that's down at the same level, all that people will see in your glasses is just a big bright light. And Lisa, no, I'm not familiar with Jitsi, but I'd like to know about it if that's another if that's another platform that I don't know about. So can you use other cameras? Yes, you can. I have this very camera. I have a couple of PTZs with SDI outputs and HDMI outputs. You need to be a little bit careful with these. An HDMI output will have a 5-frame lag in it. So if you have questions about setting up anything special, you're welcome to get in touch with me at any time, and I can help you run through that. I have a number of remote control cameras and high definition 4K cameras here in my studio, and I can tell you, you have to start matching frame rates and resolutions and all kinds of different things. So these webcams that we just looked at, this is the quick, simple, easy way to get a little bit better look, a little bit more professional look with your audience, and have a little bit less echoey room kinds of sound with your audio. So another question that I asked a lot is, can everybody really talk at once? And the answer is actually no. In a sense they can, but if your speakers and your microphone are both going at the same time, you're going to get a bunch of feedback. So once you have a meeting going and you have 8 or 10 people in there, somebody kind of needs to take control, because as people try to talk, as I talk, my speakers cut off so that I don't have a feedback. And as someone else is talking, my mic is going to cut off. And Zoom does that. The computer system does that. So you can either go to a set of headphones, which is a great alternative. That's a really great way to do it. Or once you get a lot of people in the room, somebody needs to take a little bit of control and do a little traffic control in order to keep the cutting out of the audio to a minimum. So if you're going to use YouTube, or if you make videos, if you are doing training, if you start moving some of your training to online, YouTube is a great place to put it. You can put it on as public, which helps your search engine results. It helps raise your profile of your organization if you're sharing meetings and training and stuff like that. That helps, and you can embed those in blogs in your website. That's actually the very, very best way to reach more people and to raise your profile. It's good for your board members. It's good for your publicity altogether. You can also use unlisted videos if you want to create training that you would like for volunteers to be able to access, but that doesn't come up in searches unless you have the URL. You can use unlisted videos, and you can still embed those in websites. And depending on your websites and how you're structured, you can publish those in a way that maybe you just have a password for your volunteers, and they can go in and they can access all of your training. And from teaching people how to properly check out a dog for walking at the pound, or how to, customer service, or what your procedures are at your organization. Creating those videos is a wonderful way to do, wonderful ways to create that training. And then YouTube is completely free to use. Vimeo, some of the others are more secure in the sense that you can restrict them a little bit more, but they all cost money after a certain number of videos. So this is a picture of someone who joined us yesterday, not really understanding that she was on camera, and I've got a lot of stories about this kind of stuff. So it's a liability. You need to make sure that people who are joining you kind of understand, and they have some idea of what the tools are. You want to disable I always set my meetings where everybody who joins, their camera and their microphone is disabled by default. And then I can turn that on as we go. So I wanted to talk real briefly about copyright, and then Gina, I think I'd like for you to talk about forms right after this. So once you start putting training and seminars and putting your activities on YouTube or anywhere on your website, but YouTube especially, you are going to run into copyright issues. And some of the saddest stories that I've heard are like weddings, and people will post their weddings, but they have copyrighted music in it, or they have a seminar that they've produced. It's a couple of hours, and they have a break, and they have a break, and they're playing music, and it's copyrighted music. So YouTube especially fingerprints all the digital files, the video and the audio, and those, it makes it very easy for content creators to come back and find copyright infringement and come back on it. So you don't need to read all this. We're not going to have time to do this. But let me just say that everything is copyrighted. Once anybody creates anything, it is considered copyrighted by law, and fair use is not always an excuse. I did have something that I could show you. It's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit judgment against a school. So a public education organization that lost a very big lawsuit because of their copyright violations. And they just thought that, oh, it's fair use, we're an educational system, and that's not true. So if you're having a class, the way I like to explain it is, if you're having a class on jazz and you are playing jazz clips and talking about those jazz clips in terms of an educational kind of background, you're criticizing, or you're critiquing, or you're talking about how those particular chords fit together. So if you play the full song from beginning to end, then you better have a really good reason for it. So one is fair use, it's educational. You do have a little bit more leeway with nonprofit. And I'll give you the standard disclaimer here. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. However, you do need to be aware that pictures that you just get on the internet, music that is played, you could be violating copyright. And you need to be careful of how you do that, because you don't want to put your organization at risk. So anything that you find on the internet is very likely to be copyrighted. So Gina, I'm going to take a little bit of a break before we get into HIPAA and some of the other laws. And let me stop my share. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, FYI, there was a request to, if you could in the Q&A, read the full question out loud before answering.
That's a very good idea.
If you would.
That's a very good idea. I'm sorry about that. All right, Gina, it's all yours.
I don't know if you can see my screen, but I have a feeling not. And now all of a sudden the wind's blowing everywhere. Anyway, I was just quickly going to talk about like Google Docs and Google Forms. I'm sure many of you have used that. And many of you might not be familiar with it, but it's a really great way for situations like this to share documents or forms. It's free, it's embeddable to any platform, which is really great. SAVMA uses it, as a lot of you on this webinar may have noticed. When you fill out your award nominations for your volunteers, that was a Google form. Obviously, we use it for surveys. I was going to try to pull up my screen here, but it's not working on my end. I think it's my fault, Ken. Sorry. But
click
go ahead.
the little green share screen at the bottom, and then pick your window. Yeah. And then click share screen. Everyone.
I feel like I'm gonna share the wrong screen, but let's try it and see what happens. Oh, can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Docs, Google, there you go.
Well, anyway, this is just an example of another case. So you have your regular surveys, like also the one that SAVMA sent out about the COVID. What's everybody doing? What do you need help with? And then this is one that Habitat used recently because we're doing a virtual volunteer town hall, a virtual meeting with our volunteers. And so this was our way of sending them an email and then getting responses for them to ask us questions ahead of time that we can give to our CEO. So this is an example of that. Obviously in these forms, you can print out a spreadsheet, you can look at pie charts, all kinds of fun things. The other quickly is because of all the awesome downtime we have now at home, we can create cool things. So we created an online orientation, which is something we've always wanted to do. So now we've had the chance. So with the form, you can embed a quiz. So if you want to do your online orientation / presentation, now you can, embed a quiz in there to make sure the potential volunteer or whatnot, actually paid attention to the presentation or orientation. There's lots of different ways you can do it. We just chose to, put this in initially. Thank you for your interest. And then we put the link to our Prezi orientation. And then, of course, when they're done watching that, they would just click next and then go through the questions and whatnot. You want to probably make sure you put in a section in there for their name and email so you know who actually took the quiz. Oh, no. Sorry. My screen isn't letting me go above. Oh, there we go. Another is for our Google Drive. So I'm also lucky enough to work with a lot of the habitats across the country. And so they have a really tight-knit volunteer manager family, if you will, where they share documents. And so a lot of us have also been doing our policy and procedure manuals. And so sharing them on Google Docs has been really great. So we can all kind of learn from each other. And not reinvent the wheel, which is very helpful. And so that's a great opportunity for SAVMA to take part in that as well at some point. I think that's on our list of things to do for all of us volunteer managers, to share documents so we can learn from each other. And this is kind of what it would look like for Google Docs or Google Drive. But that was pretty much it. Oh, another important thing for Google Forms is if you need to send a form to a volunteer or a waiver or some type of agreement, they can just click a box, they can e-sign their name, whatever. And so that's quick and easy. It's also a great way for you to store things electronically if your organization doesn't have any type of program like a Volgistics or Better Impact kind of thing where you need to store things in your computer and you're only using Excel for keeping track of volunteers or whatnot. But let's hope that's not the case. And so anyway, it's just another great way to interact with the public, the volunteers, your staff, whatnot, others. So if you haven't used it, and are not familiar with it, I'm happy to help you out, or anybody. Well, now we can see everything. Sorry. With that, so now I don't know what to do, Ken.
Okay.
Oh, stop share. That's how it goes. Sorry.
All right.
So
All right.
hopefully that was a little bit helpful.
Yeah. So the thing about Google Docs is, again, so much of the functionality is free. You can take things like calendar and embed those calendars in websites. You can, all of the functionality is available on your phone, your tablet. If you are collaborating on a document, you can actually see what someone else can log into that same document, and you can both work on it at the same time. You can see what someone else is typing. Calendars are the same same kind of thing. You can collaborate and embed. You can just embed everything into different kinds of platforms. There are great web presentations, like similar to PowerPoint, Excel sheets. They were working on a database thing that was kind of close to Access, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since I looked at that. So Google Docs is obviously an incredibly important resource for especially those of us who work for nonprofits that don't have a lot of money. So I want to launch a quick poll here. And the question is, what is the most important online activity to you during this COVID pandemic when you're kind of shut down? So weigh in for me here and let me know. We'll play some non-copyrighted music. La la. Interesting. Maintaining relationships is obviously the big thing. Managing activities, project management. We're going to talk about a couple of tools for planning and project management. And I would definitely, so I have a question here. Can you explain the difference between project management and managing activities? And so what I'm thinking of with project management is more the planning and the administrative part of like in my field, where I'm managing a number of different projects that have to do with perhaps video production and rewriting of some manuals and different things like that, while managing activities, I would say, would be more like, for Habitat, building the house, or for the PC animal control, actually having volunteers walk the dogs. That hopefully that explains more what I'm talking about. So maintaining relationships with your volunteers is by far the biggest, and I would urge all of you to think very carefully or very hard about having something like a weekly, just a get together, a coffee klatch. In my case, maybe a little happy hour or something. Just put it together, invite people. There's no particular pressure. You can even play games. There's lots of things that you can do online as part of what you're, as part of the thing. But the important thing is, as Tori was telling me earlier, her volunteers, they typically work together on the same day. And so they're really missing interaction. The Tuesday people are missing their Tuesday buddies. And so keeping that kind of a relationship, facilitating it, making yourself the expert at it and facilitating it. As I was telling her, you can actually create a meeting and other people can just go. You don't actually have to spend your time facilitating the meeting. You can let the volunteers in and let them go with it, but it gives them some chance to say, hey, and we all know that this is a really hard time for all of us emotionally and mentally, and especially for older adults who may be isolated. This is an issue that I've worked on for years: social isolation in an aging population, and this, for people who their outlet is volunteerism. This is super important to provide some ability for them to stay in touch, but it's also important for your organization as it fires back up, hopefully soon. And you still got your volunteers. They haven't drifted off. They haven't not heard from you in a long, long time, and they're still with you. They're still active. They're still invested in your organization and your mission. So I guess that's enough of the preaching to the choir, right? All right. HIPAA. If you are if you fall under HIPAA, which is the Health Privacy Act, then if you're doing any work with clients, you cannot just use a regular chat product like Zoom. Zoom does have a higher level of, as you can see on this chart, for $200 a month. A HIPAA level requires a particular type of forensic analysis. It's like anything with HIPAA, anything that's online, any of your databases, that it has to meet certain strict requirements for privacy and for auditing purposes. And you have to sign an agreement with the company that provides you that platform. So there are some, I just grabbed a list of some of the HIPAA things. I don't really deal with this too much, but I know that sometimes nonprofits are not completely aware of their of the requirements that they fall under with HIPAA. So if you are HIPAA, then you need to take a closer look at some of the platforms that have the privacy built in for HIPAA use. So let's talk a little bit about electronic signatures. Gina talked briefly about this, and the fact is that electronic signatures are actually preferred by the US government, and electronic signatures take a wide variety of you can implement those in a wide variety. Some are through companies that actually have a forensic fingerprint, an encrypted file that goes along with it that actually identifies the person. They have to actually sign in, and it has a PGP, a public number, and a private number, and all these different things. But for most of us, what we really need is just a way of having people acknowledge that they have read something and that they agree to abide by something. And so on the forms that we were talking about with Google Forms, if you have a box that they check that says that they agree to the dress code, and they type in their name, and you send it to their personal email address, and they send it back from their personal email address, that is good enough for most of us. We don't really we're not actually going to take anybody to court and sue them for that, but that's a way of getting what is a paper process, that what may be a paper process for you, and turning that into an electronic process that in systems that I built in the past, they would go to a website, they created their account, they had all of their resources and paperwork in one place, they went through their training, they signed all their paperwork. When they signed it electronically, it automatically saved it. It also sent an email with a copy to St. Louis. It sent an email with a copy to me. These are all things that you can build and create to help manage your paperwork stream and take it out of the paper realm and put it into the electronic realm. And Jennifer wants me to let everyone know that there will be an electronic survey coming via email, and we are looking forward to learning from this experience and how to meet their needs. So excellent. This is just really kind of the beginning of hopefully a lot of online learning and communication that we create with resources. We're recording this, so we'll be able to others will be able to look at this in the future. Okay. I'm going to jump real quickly. A lot of us need some kind of a database. This particular database is in something called Airtable. It is free for most use. I've been using this to catalog all of the books and stuff that are available under with the program, that all the books that I write for the Oasis Institute. So there are dozens of books. It's got all the information about the books. It's got whether or not they're in English and Spanish, how many pages, when they were written. All of that is right here. And on the website, we have links to this. So you click the link, it opens this up, and our partners can take a quick look, or potential partners can take a quick look at it and say, oh, you know, I would like to have, I'd like to partner with you because I really need these cybercrime manuals. And so that's Airtable. It's an excellent online, I'm just checking some of the notes here. It's an excellent online resource for creating a database. It's very customizable. You can kind of create all the different looks. In my particular case here, I created a number of categories. Within those categories, things are alphabetized, so everything is together, and people can print it out, or they can take a look at it in different ways by just clicking a few buttons. So Airtable is a great resource for if you're a Kanban user or project management person. I use Asana, and here is another great place to let me type this in chat here. I was just being asked a question. So Airtable is is the database that I'm talking about right here. And the project management data platform that I'm going to talk about here is called Asana. And Asana has different looks, but here, if you're familiar with this type of project management, we have our backlog. When we have something that we begin to work on, we can drag it into the in progress. When it's finished, we can mark it done and put it over here. Each one of these things can have a whole bunch of embedded steps to follow, and it can be assigned to people. And yet all of this is again, it's completely free, and it's very powerful. All of these are freemium. In other words, there's a basic level that is free to use. And then if you want some of the extra superpowers that they offer, you can pay for a little bit more functionality within that program. So let me take a look through here. What time do we go to, Tori?
A little bit before 5.
Okay. All right. So again, I'm so happy to be doing this. I'm hopeful that we are touching on things that can spark your interest and spark what you may need, spark some thought about things that we can help you with in the future, or things that you may want to follow up on, maybe solutions that you hadn't thought about before. So let's, I'm not sure, I think I've covered pretty much everything. DocuSign is also another product that is available at a big discount for nonprofits. If you really need signatures that are trackable for more important things than just an agreement for the dress code or something, you can use the DocuSign program. All of these things here. Slack is another great platform for, we use Slack. I have 5 or 6 different organizations that I work with, and we're all on Slack. It's a great organizational platform for keeping track of documents and conversations. You can create different channels to talk about it. So for instance, in my business, I have cybercrime channels and video channels and all these different channels about the different kinds of categories of work that I do. So those are all great programs that TechSoup has discounted prices for the more advanced users.